numéro nan 202-918-6992.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And today we have the privilege to have with us Kit Mines from the USIP, United States Institute for Peace. He's Program Director for Latin America. With Kit Mines, we are going to talk about the Haitian crisis, the recent meeting in Bahamas, Jamaica, and also the trip of the U.S. Vice President to Bahamas to talk about the crisis in the region, especially the crisis in Haiti. And we have the greatest pleasure to have Kit Mines with us. It's not the first time he talked to us. Kit Mines is an expert in the region. He works in several countries in Latin America, including in Haiti. And with him, we are going to see how we can get some reflection regarding the crisis in Haiti. Mr. Mines, good evening. How are you doing?
Good. It's great to be with you again. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity.
Is there anything that I miss from the presentation about USIP or yourself that you would like to add?
No, just a reminder for those that don't know us, the U.S. Institute of Peace is a publicly funded institute funded by the U.S. Congress with the intention of developing solutions to conflicts. We have programs both on the ground and in Washington on the policy and analytical front. We work across a wide array of issues, including election violence, countering violent extremism, state fragility, and then the direct issues related to conflict, ceasefires, mediation, negotiation to try to help end conflicts. And we have a mix of regional teams and specialists like the team that I lead on Latin America, and then the thematic teams on youth and gender and religious peace builders, supporting those in the field that are trying to find solutions to conflict. So very active on Haiti right now, and as well a long-standing program on Colombia and Venezuela, and then Northern Central America and Nicaragua and Bolivia. So that's the laydown we have. And you're in Washington, please come see us. I'd love to show you our building and get you familiar with the work that we do at USIP.
You wrote an op-ed recently regarding the situation in Haiti, and also participating in several discussions with media. Tell us about the op-eds. What is your observation regarding the current situation right now?
So the question that I'm raising is whether we have the right international assistance architecture to finally get to a closure to this crisis that Haiti has been in since the assassination of President Moise. I mean, we're going on 2 years now, a month away from 2 years, I guess. So that's a long time for a crisis like this to drag on. And I'm raising the question whether this obsession, which we have now in the international community of local-led solutions, hasn't gone too far. I think that we all agree that the solution needs to be local. The question is, what are the things that need to be provided by those that are interested in helping to set the conditions and the parameters and provide the support for the local actors that they can come to a viable conclusion. And what's been needed in Haiti for the last 2 years is simply a functional transitional government, which it hasn't had. It's had this the government of Prime Minister Henry now acting as the executive, which has been kind of the basic governance tasks, but other recommendations haven't taken hold. So it's a very tenuous governing arrangement. It doesn't seem to have been. It doesn't seem to be strong enough to attach the different security measures that are needed to reset the security situation in the country. And so there's just this sense of tentativeness to the government right now. It's not a fully functional transitional government. So I think that's the task. What I'm suggesting, and I was reminded as I was considering it, was the very spirited work that Lanzanes Kuyate did. I was his executive assistant when he was the special representative to Somalia. And I don't want to get too far into Somalia cases because they're very different countries. But this was a great example, I thought, of an individual that was incredibly talented at mediation, bringing parties together, and then sort of relentless in not accepting that a crisis could just drag on forever. And so this was in the winter of 2004. So it was after the Black Hawk Down incident where Mohammed Farah Aidid's forces had brought down a couple of U.S. helicopters and a fairly significant loss of life there on the U.S. side, and then a kind of a running battle for several months. But it was then by the winter of '94, it was then time to try to move on, and there was a need to get beyond the crisis and establish some kind of a governing arrangement. So Kuyate was just very skilled at this. He went on to be Guinea's prime minister later, very talented politician, diplomat. And he saw an opportunity. There was a battle in Kismayo in the south, and he decided that, with that, there was a need to end the crisis of governing and get the clans to a place where they had an agreement and they were no longer simply trying to get the upper hand against each other on the battlefield, and they needed to come to a peaceful arrangement. So we started this long process where we would invite 30 or so of the top leaders to Nairobi. Kuyate was in Nairobi with them. I stayed behind in Somalia to go find the other leaders that were needed, and it was a mix of civil society and clan leaders and political leaders, but all of the kind of sectors being covered that would be enough to forge this agreement. And then he spent just two or so weeks with the different parties in small meetings and big meetings and individual meetings, and listening, cajoling, pressing, and very patiently devising the outlines of an agreement. And at the end of the 2 weeks, it was still very tentative, but he said, look, I've done everything I can. The rest of it is a question of egos. It's a question of people not feeling like they're going to have enough power coming out of this. And he said, that we've done all we can on the technical side to have an arrangement that should be able to work. So with that, we, it was one of those Hollywood moments where we put all the suitcases down in the hotel lobby and said, the talks are going to be done tonight, and if we can't make an arrangement, then we'll all just go back to Somalia, and that'll be the end of it. And that was finally enough to get the clans to agree. We did a signing ceremony, and it gave an arrangement that basically bought the country 5 years of peace, and enough of a reset that the famine really was definitively ended, and so quite a political coup by Ambassador Kuyate. But it was something that, again, needed outside assistance. Wasn't something that could have been done without that. It was something that required a lot of patience. It needed some resources, and it needed a very skilled person to do that. So I'm suggesting that has been missing in Haiti up until now. We've had 2 years of drift. I don't associate anyone really with leading an effort. There's been a lot of complaints about things, but not the leadership of an effort like that. Now, I will say there's a number of things in play now that could be this. They could be this kind of mediation moment. Jonathan Powell, I know, has been in and out of Haiti a lot. He's a very skilled negotiator and mediator, and he's done some tremendous work to try to bring the different parties together. And the CARICOM effort, I think, also has great promise. I can talk about that in a second, but so there's a couple things in play, but I think there really needs to be a decision which of these is the one that the international community is behind, and then it needs to stay with that effort until it is concluded. And that's what I think has not happened. We've gone up and down and back and forth with a lot of things that just have not played out, and they've just been allowed to drift. Sorry, you're on mute.
So you follow the Jamaican meeting where there are about 30 Haitian politicians and member of the CARICOM trying to see if they can find any agreements. What did you get as a feedback? How did it go?
Well, so the declaration was, I thought it could be promising. It's a little opaque, I think, how it will play out, but it calls for the reestablishment of an executive power with a presidential college. I think that means, several individuals that would be part of an executive advisory body or part of the governing body, and then a national unity government headed by a prime minister. So it's a prime minister, not the prime minister. I assume that would be a new prime minister. And then the government establishing a roadmap that has the terms of transition and respects the Constitution to the extent possible, the government creates the necessary conditions to reestablish trust with the population, ensure a security environment, and reforms and on the way to inclusive and legitimate governance. And then a follow-up commission composed, among others, by members of CARICOM. CARICOM's in a pretty good position, I think, to do this. They've had, of course, the three former prime ministers that have been a part of an effort. And that was another idea that we've had for quite a while, was the need for a kind of an eminence group, of former prime ministers or leaders with a lot of gravitas that could lead an effort. So you've got the former prime ministers of Jamaica, the Bahamas, and St. Lucia. That's a pretty good team, I think. The question is, will they be the ones that stay with this? I think the last thing Haiti needs is for another effort that comes and goes and comes and goes. It's got to be something where this is the team, the effort, the architecture, I keep using that word, where the international community gets behind this and says, this is our effort. So it isn't one negotiator going in and trying to do something, but without any real influence. It's not a meeting with a number of leaders that, are just there to listen, but when it's over, they all go back home. There's got to be really something that stays behind, both in Haiti and is part of a process that will be seen through. And that's what I think has been missing. So this has the potential.
Do you have an idea about the parties who signed this resolution, or if we can call it like this? If I'm curious if the Prime Minister Ariel Henry has signed, because he has been always reluctant. The first day of the meeting, he shut down any idea that there is a new government, like executive branch with the president, because he sees himself as the only man in power. So did he sign this document?
That I actually don't know. I saw the document with the signatures. That's a very good question. I did not look at it for his signature. That's a very good question. I think it has some, it was criticized the minute it came out. That's a very early critiques, that it wasn't enough people. It was only 30. And I know the HCT did not attend. That also, I think, was not entirely encouraging. So I don't think it was a complete agreement. And I guess that's where I would again go back to the Somali case. Was, part of the process was keeping them there until we had everybody. And this piece of the process was not really designed that way. It was always going to be a 3-day meeting. It's okay as a start, but I think, there needs to be a process where people are sort of captured. And, we're not going to leave until we have this done. If people are complaining that they're not represented, they're brought into it. There's some magic number, and, you have to, in every diplomatic process, you have to think about what that is. Sometimes it's a lot. In Afghanistan, for the Loya Jirga, it was 1,700 people. And that was just what was needed, both historically to follow the Loya Jirga model, which everybody understood, and to cover all the different groups. I mean, there was 250 women and 50 poets and intellectuals, and every region was represented, all the political parties. So it was a very extensive process. And then the low end, I believe the Tunisian process just had 10 or even less than 10. So, there's some magic number in there. And I think, again, the mediators need to figure that out. But I do think that coming in and out of meetings like this, and coming away with an agreement that everybody then just begins to tear apart is not helpful. So we'll see in the days that come, whether this is something that people accept or not. I was always a bit more of a fan of building on the December 21 process, only because it came with a pretty full recommendation for an architecture for transition. It had the HCT, it had the ICAP for the legislature, it had the roundtables, which I think was a very clever and very intelligent concept. So it had a lot of pieces that, if there's a new direction taken, I think a lot of those same things are going to have to be now recreated, which is fine. But you have to ask yourself at some point, if we're just, we built a house and nobody wants to live in it, so we'll go build another house and it's going to look just the same. It's going to have the same plumbing, same carpet. And they didn't want to live in that one either. Well, let's just go build. I mean, at some point we got to live in the house that's there and make it work. And maybe it doesn't have enough doors for everybody, but there's going to have to be compromises made and build on what's already existing. And I think we do need to get away from this tendency that every time somebody's upset, we start over and try something new. There's got to be, some arrangement, or again, the design that has the pieces. And I do think that December 21 had that. So I think it's a little unfortunate if we're starting over, abandoning that. I think we're going to end up with a lot of the same pieces.
So in Haiti, people see that meeting as a waste of time, waste of money, that there's nothing, it was not necessary to go to, Jamaica to trying to find something that they have been fighting for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the understanding is that as long as the US is not on board, it's nothing is going to happen. So it's not, I'm not trying to incriminate the United States and that, but it's like, we understand that the situation is like this because the State Department wants Ariel Henry to be the only one in charge. If so, they would just instructed him the same way he was nominated via a tweet. And it's proved that nothing has changed. The system that has been used before isn't working now, because it's about like 23 months since he's in power.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation keep getting worse. 2 months ago, the UN issued a report saying that there are more civilians died in Haiti and gang violence than any other countries and conflict in the world, including Ukraine. I mentioned Ukraine just because there is like ongoing war here. So it's a very dire situation. But in Washington, we don't see a sense of urgency that there is something that needs to be done. If Ariel Henry could, he would have done something like in the 23 months he's in power now.
Yeah, that's the question. Is what is left of the arrangement that's been made, and that's just a looming question. The role of the United States is key, and I make the point in this op-ed that'll hopefully come out in a couple of days that it really does require the United States, and whatever the U.S. endorses is going to be pretty much the thing to get behind. It's just the biggest player and has the most influence, and historically is simply the country that has the ability to manage all the different pieces of this going forward and help with all the other parts of assistance. The biggest donor, the biggest provider of security assistance will be the United States, no matter what course is taken. The biggest diaspora of Haitians in the world, outside Haiti, of course. So, the U.S. has got an outsized role in this. I think that's pretty defined. And I think it's justifiable criticism or commentary that the U.S. support for Henry is what has kept him in power. I think at the end of the day, the U.S. was reluctant to dismiss Henry and try again with something else. So I think it's just a fallback to try to support a government that is already in place. But that requires, again, a dynamic approach where that government is evolving and building out more representation, where the executive is not a single person, but has has better representation from the country. These roundtables, again, for the roundtable dialogues, I think would have been very useful, that were part of the December 21 arrangement, where you have people being engaged by sectors and by regions and their views taken into account. So yeah, the U.S. is still the big player. I don't know whether the U.S. government will endorse this latest effort, but I agree that its endorsement for whatever course is taken is going to be one of the key distinguishers of whether it actually works or not.
So do you have any feedback? I know the vice president traveled to Bahamas, where she has been in charge now, trying to bring about peace in the region, and especially in Haiti. Do you have anything what transpired from this visit to Bahamas, or is it nothing has changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was significant that she went. That she went. I mean, that was not a small thing. She was the highest official to go to the Bahamas in 50 years, whatever that's worth. It was her fourth meeting with the Caribbean, with CARICOM officials. There was a lot of work that was done on firearms. I mean, there's a lot of peripheral issues that frankly need to be worked in tandem. There's no point in waiting for something in Haiti to emerge before you start working on the firearms trafficking into Haiti and the Caribbean, which is just an absolute plague. So it's fueling violence and instability across the region, particularly in places like Jamaica and Haiti, of course, in a whole separate place. So there was a number of technical and legal measures that they took. There's a law enforcement transnational criminal investigative unit that will be established in Haiti. That's not a bad thing. It's small, but it's something that will be helpful on their side as they try to figure out how to tackle the issue of arms coming into their country. They did a lot on climate change. There was kind of a technical piece, a preparedness piece, and then development financing. That's, again, not an immediate issue for Haiti, but Haiti is certainly on the receiving end of many of the climate disasters that are happening. And then she announced 2 new embassies in the Eastern Caribbean. So, U.S. emphasis on that part of the world. Part of it's probably driven by the competitiveness with China, which is all too happy to extend its diplomatic presence. And so I think the United States is trying to match that where it can. And then in Haiti, she talked about, again, support for a multinational force, but without an offer of U.S. direct support to that force, $53 million in humanitarian assistance, and then significantly the administration's support for Hope Help to extend trade preferences. So that was really a good thing. I think people have been asking me about that for the last year and a half. I thought it was a little bit premature because it doesn't expire until 2025, but they make the point that it has to be secured now so that businesses know that it will still be there and they can make, arrangements for and planning for what they're going to be doing in Haiti. And the business community in Haiti, of course, is still very dynamic. There's a lot of companies still trying to function, and there's a lot there. I mean, the last thing we need now is for an exodus of what is left of the business sector and the manufacturing sector that would hollow out jobs. Every job feeds 8 to 10 people. So, that's a real and important component of it. Anyway, so, she came down with a few programmatic things, a few talking points. I think nothing on the political side necessarily. I don't think that the U.S. wanted to do anything special there. So the CARICOM meeting was one thing. There will be a ministerial next week hosted by USIP on the margins of the OAS General Assembly. So that'll be, I think, another touch point for some of these issues among the ministers of the OAS. Again, hopefully that'll be helpful in promoting a solution. But there's still, I think, it's, again, a tentativeness about what to get behind. And again, my strong recommendation or preference would be that there is something that's got all the different components, that's led by the right people, and then is supported by the international community, and especially the United States, that everybody can then get behind and say, this is something we all support as the way to build that transitional government, which then can give Haiti the means to provide security and move the country in the direction of free and fair elections, which is
There are the Montana Accord, which had pretty significant organization supported. Now, understand that the Montana group by themselves, they cannot, solve the problem because it should be a broader consensus. But we think that, like, if the United States really wanted to do something, so they would have worked with the Montana group to see, because it's pretty much the viable parts, because there are about like more than 200 organizations signing, and then it was a very transparent process electing a president. So I'm not saying like they should go with everything that was in the Montana, but ignoring the Montana Accord and leaving Ariel Henry by himself, and he proved that is not capable of solving the problem by himself or solving it at all, because like I said before, 23 months, thousands of people died. Now we cannot even speak about election in the region now, and the understanding is not the current government wants the problem to stay as is, because the more what's the problem, the better it is for them, so they can get like more time, which is not what we think the U.S. quite understand or ignore. So with that being said, on the issue of sending troops in Haiti, there has been a lot of talks, and the Canada doesn't want to endorse. Like, it seems like no other country want to take the lead in sending troops, and even the Haitian government, because Ariel Henry recently said they never asked for troops, although the Haitian foreign minister asked like publicly in the UN. So do you have any understanding that maybe there would be like a move? I heard like Jamaica may be willing to accept to send to lead the troop in Haiti. Do you have any feedback about that? What's your understanding?
Yeah, so backing up just a second though to Montana, and just to kind of close that out. So Montana, I meet with them fairly frequently. I have total respect for what they've achieved and what they are able to do in terms of broader representation. Excuse me. And I think they have they've been very diligent in trying to build this coalition around these different civil society organizations, political organizations. And again, they have a tremendous amount of backing. For whatever reason, the U.S. Didn't support the Montana group. Others didn't support them. So we're kind of at a place where they're going to have to be now, I think, part of a broader process where they're one player among several, as opposed to the idea they initially had, which was that they should be given the opportunity to govern. I think we're way past the point where that could happen. But in the meantime, they have a very dynamic group and organization, great leaders, and they have a real role to play, again, alongside other actors that will be doing similar inputs to a transitional government. Now, again, organizing that is where you really need that good mediator to forge an accord that everybody agrees to, and then is fully supported by the international community. So between the Montana group, the December 21 Accord, the Henry government, and frankly others out there still needs to be a process that pulls them all together behind a single plan. And you're right, they are not behind a single plan right now. They're all trying either to govern or to be in a position to govern in a certain scenario. So somehow those ambitions and the ideas that have come in as part of an organization the personal things need to be set aside, I think, and people get together in what would be a coherent governing arrangement. I think we're actually getting closer to that. I can see where that could happen. From that, if you had a viable transitional government, I think that the international community would be more inclined to assist on the security front. I think part of the reason why they're not so excited about helping out is that there's not a government that they're supporting. I think some are actually concerned that they would be supporting an unpopular government against its own people. I mean, there's not a cohesion in the government that allows people to be supportive of that. Now, even with that, I think it's going to be hard. I think that there's not a natural leader for this, at least not that wants to lead. The U.S. role is really critical. The U.S. comes in with the logistics and the intelligence, a lot of what we called in other conflicts the enablers, the things, the firepower that allows you to safely retake security in a place like Port-au-Prince that is now very, very fractured and very dangerous. And so, it's not a mission for the faint of heart. It's something that's going to take some real muscle, I think, to get in and do it. So I don't see a nation like Jamaica having that. I think they can contribute with all due respect. I think the others that have contributed in the past, Brazil and Chile, also did so at a time when it was not this challenging of a security environment. The Canadians simply don't want to do this. They've made that very clear. So it kind of all comes back around to the United States, I'm afraid. I mean, it's the only country that really has the means to put this coalition together. It doesn't mean the United States would do it alone. Not quite the opposite, but it would certainly have to be.
So do you believe the war in Ukraine make this situation a little bit difficult for Haiti? There is a shifted focus on the situation that is going on in Ukraine right now, so that make Haiti is a little bit neglected in terms of what the U.S. could be doing in terms of foreign policy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good excuse. People use that as an excuse. I don't think it's true. No, I think U.S. is a global power still. It's got the means to do certainly a large crisis like Ukraine, where it's not even fighting, it's just writing checks, and then a small crisis like Haiti. So I don't. If people say that, I think it's a really bad excuse. I don't think that's something that the resources are there, the people are there. That's not a good reason to not be able to do something in Haiti. I think, again, the concern, I've said this several times publicly, the concern is with taking casualties, and this is an issue. So I think, any force that goes in is probably going to, this time more than in the past, is going to take casualties. There's also a tricky situation that the lighter the force, the inclination would be to have a very light force go in, so as not to be too dramatic. But the problem with the light force is it actually would be more dangerous.
But kids, forgive me if I interrupt you.
That's fine.
What we don't understand, gang members, everybody is afraid of the U.S. I don't understand when people are talking about casualties, because with only the idea about sending troops to Haiti make every gang member is afraid. And I always take this joke with other people, saying that if the U.S. wanted to solve the security problem, and which we don't call, because we don't think any foreign countries has the obligation to solve another country problem. But last year, the U.S. military killed someone in Iraq, a terrorist, with a drone, rightly so, because he was a terrorist member. And then the operation was guided in the U.S. Now we're talking about 1,000 miles from here, and Haiti is about 100 something, and 17 missionaries, U.S. citizens, kidnapped for several days, and they had to pay for their release. We don't understand, and people in Haiti don't understand, saying what does that mean? Is the U.S. really, are they really afraid that there will be casualties if they send troops, or they are not willing to, because for some of the idea, or sending foreign troop is not a popular idea in the U.S. right now, but the idea that once some U.S. military would be killed in Haiti, we don't get it.
Well, okay, that's a good, I guess, a good way of putting it. I think you're right that if it was the U.S. military, I think that there would not be a lot of casualties. There would not be a lot of confrontations, but it also is not a long-term solution. So, the United States basically coming in and sort of taking over, that transition then to Haitian security is one that would need to be a part of the package. I think you mentioned the drones, and I mean, just to think about that for a minute, I think you actually have a very good point that there's technical means, if you will, to put it in a kind of a sterile terminology. There's ways I think that the gangs could be dealt with that don't include, right, a lot of fighting on the ground and things like that. We certainly don't want to have another Black Hawk Down incident. And I think there's ways to do that. That's the kind of creative thinking that I think needs to be done by those that are trying to figure out how to reestablish security. And I think there's a lot more that could be done by the Haitian forces if they're, again, part of a larger process. I think the problem now is it's very haphazard. You've got the HNP that is being supported and it gets some training and some equipment, but it's not part of a full package of governing that falls under an effective government. So I think there's a governing angle to this, there's a support angle. And then on the technical side, I think you're right. There's probably ways to do this that would involve drones or some of the air support that could be provided. But it still does come down to somebody on the ground, going in and making sure the streets are safe and establishing police stations again and things like that. And that is going to be somewhat dangerous work with gangs that are now very well armed. Now, somebody's also going to have to talk to these gangs, and that's something else that I think we have to acknowledge up front. There's a real dance between, you don't want to empower them politically that they fought their way into power. So giving them, which is what they want. They obviously, a lot of them want a political position. Well, that's probably not something that's a good idea, but they at least have to be, met with as this security plan unfolds. And there's a lot of them that you could probably deal with through some other means rather than just fighting them. And then disconnecting them, obviously, from political leaders is absolutely critical. And that's part of the sanctions policy that I think everybody's following now, is trying to just, to disconnect the political powers from these gangs that they've been using to stay in power. It's been a very toxic thing that's just got to be broken. And so when that's broken, they no longer have political clout. Then they're just criminals, and it's a little bit easier, but it's still tricky to then contain them, but give them incentives to go on to something else. And any conflict has this. The insurgents, come in with demands, and so there's a whole process to go through and think through what is it that these gangs would require on the other side, short of political power. Again, that's the one red line that I think people would establish. They're not going to fight their way into it.
Let's talk now the last point about the sanction against some very high profile figures in Haiti. But what is remarkable in the sanctions, a lot of people who were working for the government, like general directors, like secretary, like they call minister in Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always stunning for people in Haiti to see that how the US keeps supporting a government where a lot of its members are accused of fooling the exact same gangs that are killing people in Haiti. And some of them, they stay months in power after they were put on the OFAC list, like so the government that did not even dare to fire them or has them to resign. So it's a blatant I mean, so it's a situation that we cannot understand. In one hand, like the US might say, so we are afraid that the alternative might not be better, since Ariel and we might present a little bit a more, a situation that is less complicated, given he was nominated by Jovenel Moise before he died. But for a government to have so many of its members, involving and financing gangs from a U.S. perspective, and the U.S. still supporting that, uh, I'm not asking you to comment about that, but we in Haiti don't really understand how can you support a government in the U.S. if someone is accused of killing any regular citizen. This person would have to resign to face justice. Ariel Henry now is on the investigation for.
Well, that goes right back to, again, the process that I just outlined. And I'm not saying it will fix everything, but certainly a government that formed up under that kind of a cloud, that it was, you can kind of understand, okay, you're a U.S. official, we've got a crisis, who governs Haiti? All right, so we fell into this. We, the United States, fell into this. Okay, that's fine. That would be fine for 2 months or 3 months, or maybe even 6 months. It's not really fine for 23 months. And I think that's where, the kind of, it breaks down. So, but what I would say on that is that, if you got this larger process in play, a lot of that would shake out, as this team of mediators is meeting with people and they're raising issues and saying, look, this guy was accused of this, that, and the other thing, and investigated, or everybody else agrees, then that person is obviously not right for this transitional government. That's the process that has to be, I think, gone through. And I think a lot of that would be cleared up in that. And I think in the interim, it is a very toxic environment because the accusations are very strong, they're very ugly, and it puts a cloud over this government. So I think it is something that needs to be changed, but I think it's hard to do it piecemeal. You sanction this guy and issue a statement about this guy, and that's a very piecemeal way to do it, rather than resetting that whole, both the arrangement and the people that are in that governing body. And I think that's what needs to happen. Again, it's going to take a heavy lift diplomatically to do this, but I think once it's done, you hopefully have a government that's clean enough that you can then can carry on without this big cloud over it. So I think that's, I can't comment on all the individual cases, but in general, I think what's missing is that process to vet everybody through a body of Haitian notables that have been selected and vetted to be part of this process. And that also covers all the different sectors. So it all goes back to that. I think that's just where we are. There's got to be a supported system of mediation that can lead to a firmly planted transitional government that has credibility, no clouds, and can then work all these other pieces. And, Montana was one great effort. December 21 was another great effort. There's pieces of both of those, and the people are still there. Let's get all those people together under the right mediators to finally bring this to a good place.
Do you understand the sanctions? We feel like it is, like you say, cherry picking sanctions, like people that the United States doesn't like, or if they want them to silence them for a while. We believe that there were about 50 people on the list, and every now and then, so you heard that there is one name that is added on the list, but we don't have, the full list to know this is someone that is responsible for financing gang members in Haiti, drug trafficking and other things. So it seems like the U.S. is choosing those people to release names based on their own interests, like those they don't need. A lot of people from the private sectors, like they know who are involving in financing, like sending harms in Haiti. We don't see those names, and nobody know the full list. Only when the Secretary of State recently they published the name of the former Prime Minister Laurent Lamotte, and then we have maybe to wait another 15 days, another month or so to know another name, or maybe not at all. How do you understand the mechanism of these sanctions?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the middle of this before, not for Haiti though, so I can't comment on any of the individual cases. But the process is actually, it's not as conspiratorial as it might look. I mean, it's a process where there's investigators and judicial officials that are developing information on different cases, different people. It's not, sporadic where things just happen to come up when they get the right information, but it does depend on having a case to be made. They have to make a case as though it was going to court. It's not, but they can't just, randomly start sanctioning people for political reasons. There might be a target where somebody is so clearly dirty and has, in the wrong side of everything that they say, hey, let's make sure we investigate this person. Or sometimes we'll look at the sanctions of another country. Why did Canada sanction this person and we haven't? So, there's triggers. But from there, the officials in Treasury, they have to go through and make a case for why that person should be sanctioned. And if you read the cases, they're actually quite good. And they always have a thing somewhere in there that says this is what the person would have to do to get unsanctioned. So it's meant to change behavior. It's supposed to be something that, puts them
but
puts them into rehab.
What I don't understand, kids, if you accuse someone of drug trafficking, what does this person has to do to get off the sanction other than facing the justice system? You accuse someone of corruption, $60 million. So they might get off the sanction, but there would be some, judicial system. And now it's not up to the U.S. I understand, like it's up to Haiti. But from a U.S. perspective, you put someone on the list for involvement in drug trafficking or corruption, and asking this person, this is what you have to do to get off the sanction. It looks like for people in Haiti, like the sanction like maybe looking as a political tools to get what they want, to silence some leaders and then let some of them and they lose.
Yeah, I mean, but there are cases where people have gotten off sanctions, so they can make their case. There's a process for doing that. It's not easy. You're right, and it's not it's not a full judicial proceeding. So that's the whole point of sanctions, is it's a lower bar than what you would have to do if you go to court and the person doesn't have the means to defend themselves. That's absolutely true. But we need this tool to be able to to put people that are undermining democracy, human rights, the financial system. It's a very important tool. It's very imperfect, and there's always going to be, why did this person get on and this person didn't? But I think people need to have lawyers that help make their case if they feel like they've been unjustly accused. They're usually not, frankly, because it's a hard thing to prove, and it's usually done, with enough care that the Treasury officials doing it don't want to have to go back and defend every case. So it's usually only the ones that are pretty clear. I don't know, again, all the cases in Haiti, but I worked on Venezuela on the sanctions policy, and it was more about the many people that we didn't sanction that we probably should have than the ones that we did. So it's a tool. I hope it's helpful. I will say everything gets easier when there's a fully functional government again, and these issues are less compelling when there is an internal Haitian way of dealing with corruption, and there's a functional financial system, and everything's going to get easier. Even arms trafficking, there will be units of the Haitian National Police that can work on arms trafficking. So all this stuff, again, I hate to go back again to the arrangement, but we've got to have that governing body that can manage all these different issues. And again, that will make sanctions a little bit less of something that even has to happen. Hopefully there will be a clean government that has its own way of dealing with corruption. It's not something that the United States has to do from outside.
And to finish, would the USIP agree to, if you were called like to participate by the State Department, the Biden administration, they ask you guys to get involved, to giving your extensive experience in the region, how could you help solving the problem? Where would you start? Would you agree first to participate, and where would you start trying to solve the problem?
Yeah, the place that I think we have the most expertise on that's pertinent now is on national dialogues. We've done a lot of those. We have a very good publication. If you go to our website, just USIP National Dialogues, you'll find our big study, which is in French and English, of national dialogue processes. And that's a very important part of all this. It gets swept away by the drama of these meetings, but trying to find a broad-based way for Haitians to input their opinions, their views, their demands into the political process. So we do that. We are very supportive of the other efforts ongoing right now at mediation. So, we have quiet ways of helping to support those mediation efforts. And then we have a number of programs that we'll be doing on the ground to try to help those peace builders. There's a number of organizations in Haiti very courageously trying to build youth leaders, religious leaders, women peace builders, and we try to be supportive of those different efforts. And then, of course, we're just very active here in Washington in the think tank sphere, trying to surface new ideas and look at those places where there's something somebody hasn't thought of, and there's a new approach to something that's been done the same way. So we try to be supportive there. And then we're also supportive, of course, of the Global Fragility Act, which is a congressional act that allows for certain fragile countries to have an additional set of resources and an additional way of the U.S. dealing with fragility. So we also try to actively support that. But national dialogue, I think, is our main thing here, and I think we have some good experts that have been helpful already in shaping some of this, and will be available in the future if that kind of process takes off.
Is there any other point that you think we should have discussed in this dialogue that we did not? I would be glad to hear, to make sure that we cover almost like every essential point.
No, I think that's the main things. The main thing for me, well, I would close with this: we can't lose hope. I mean, people cannot have this idea that everything's been tried, nothing works, and it's just not true. It is Haiti's had ups and downs, and it had a long road coming out of the dictatorship in the late 80s. That's not that long ago, frankly, in the life of a country. It's been just 30 years since coming out of a very, very brutal dictatorship, and these things take time. It's still playing out. There's tremendous energy inside Haiti for change. There's a lot of good people working to try to make this happen. They just need the right framework and the right assistance to do that, and then sequenced from this political process through security into an election. So I think not losing hope is one of the key things that we all need to think about.
Thank you so much, kids. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure, and great to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Well, that's the end of our discussion with Kit Mines, who is program director of the USIP. As I said in the introduction, Mines is an expert in the situation in the region. He is working as program director at the USIP for Latin America, and he has been working extensively on the situation in Haiti. He has a recently published an op-ed regarding the situation in Haiti. You can read this at the USIP.org to learn more about it. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for participating with us. My name is Emmanuel Paul. I look forward to be with you another time. And in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Amazon TV Fire, and Twitter. Thank you so much. Have a very nice day.